Hello, everybody, and welcome. I'm just going to talk for a few seconds here. We're going to go live in just about 30 seconds or so, but most of the platforms have a little delay, so I'm not going to actually start until we actually go. We have such an awesome, amazing, incredible panel that is going to be talking to you in just a few moments. And even one who's not quite here yet, that is Hannah Parvaz. She's having some technical issues, but hopefully she will come in just in a moment or so. I'm going to kick it off, and I think I'll start right now, and hopefully Hannah will come in and we'll see how it all goes. Hannah, I'm adding you to the stage, and here we get started. It's a big question. Yes, we can hear you, Hannah. You are there. You are live. You are visible. Awesome. This is live. We're happy to have you. Thank you for joining us. I'm going to kick it off right now. And the big question of the day is, can you trust your growth data? Bottom line, can you trust the data that you're using to grow? Hello and welcome to Growth Masterminds, the podcast for growth marketers. My name is John Kassir. This is a special live session. If you haven't noticed already, hey, it's live. There's things going on, technical issues. Who knows? It happens. Hey, we're live on LinkedIn. I think YouTube as well, and Facebook, and Instagram, all that stuff. I'm modestly calling this a mega panel because we have not one, not two, not three, but four heavy hitters with us today to answer a pretty critically important question. When Meta says you got 20,000 installs from that last campaign, can you trust it? When Google says it, hey, can you? How about TikTok? You got 100,000 new installs. Is that true? What about any other partner? We're not talking about deliberate deception. Of course, we're talking about modeling, right? AEM, ADC, the new ICM on Google. Is it accurate? Right? Because the problem that we're seeing is that there's often massive discrepancies between ad network data, App Store Connect, SKAN data, first-party data, MMP data, all this stuff. That's a problem. We need to have data we can trust if we're going to grow. So we're going to dive into all this today. We're going to solve all of it. I'm pretty sure all of our stellar guests have signed in blood to that promise. We're going to solve it all right here, right now. Speaking of them, I want to introduce them. They are pretty amazing. We have Hannah Parvaz. She's been an app marketer of the year. She's super smart. She's amazingly well-spoken. She leads Aperture agency. And if there are jobs to be done in mobile, hey, job number one is talk to Hannah. We also have Sara el Bachri, and she is a gaming growth consultant. She's a former Gameloft UA manager. I've labeled her the gunslinger of growth. She's pretty amazing. Well, she's also an angel investor. Wow, I'd like to have her investing in my app startup. She's consulted with more than 100 games, 40 studios. She leads SHAMSCO, her agency. We have David Vargas, and David is special today because guess what? This whole panel is David's fault. David posts to LinkedIn all the time. He posts what works. He posts what doesn't work. One of his posts inspired this. More on that in a bit, but he's a big UA consultant for tons of apps. He's also a UA manager for Split Metrics. He's a partnership manager for Acorns. I have no idea how he has the time to join this panel. It's probably costing him tens of thousands of dollars just to be with us here today. And last but not least, we have Aron Friedman. Aron is co-founder and CTO at Singular. He's a serial entrepreneur. He's insanely smart, but also kind, which is very unusual and nice. He's a very unusual CTO, as Ron is always talking to customers in person, live, on Slack, basically every single day. So he's super in tune with what's actually going on. And he has his fingers in just about every single pie you can think of in the measurement world. I want to thank you all. This is the mega panel. This is incredible. This is amazing. David, I want you to kick us off because, like I said, this panel is your fault. You posted something to LinkedIn. What did you share that started this whole thing?
Well, first of all, can you hear me well, right? All good, right?
Yes.
Cool. Yeah.
Yes.
Hello, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here, first of all. Yeah, and thank you for interacting with my posts, reading them, commenting. I spend some time providing as much value as I can to the community, and seeing that people resonate with that is making all the effort worth it. So thank you for that. The post was quite straightforward, as I usually write. Basically, if you run like a campaign for iOS on TikTok ads and you use the CPP option just to track your installs on App Store Connect, you will see that numbers don't line up. Basically, if you go to the app dimension, app referral dimension, you will see more installs there than under the CPP. I don't know if TikTok is not able to route the users properly towards the CPP, or if Apple is not able to track them properly. But wherever you want to think, the conclusion, the takeaway is the same. Data is not reliable, and it's not accurate when it's taken in isolation. So we have to cross-check data points to discover the reality, right? So that was the main reason and the origin of this panel, basically.
Exactly. And that's concerning, right? Because you see one number somewhere else, you see a wildly different number in another place, and it's really, really challenging. We're going to get to the bottom of that. We're going to ask each of our experts all that stuff. I've introduced each of our experts, but I want them to introduce themselves one more time, just very briefly, and tell us one thing that nobody would know from their public LinkedIn. So we're going to start with, I was going to start with Hannah, but I know she's frozen again, but we're going to give it a shot. Hannah, if you hear us, if you're not frozen, tell us one thing nobody would know from looking at your LinkedIn. And Hannah's frozen. Sarah, going on to you. What would nobody know about you?
Maybe a small fun fact. I actually have ADHD, so I can't play a game. Like, I'm not a heavy gamer, so I can't play more than a couple minutes every game that I test for my clients, etc. So yeah, I struggle with that. But yeah, people would think I'm a heavy gamer because I play, I work on a lot of games and apps, but I'm not actually. So
Interesting.
yeah, that's a fun fact.
Maybe that makes you perfect, because I mean, we all have short attention spans, right? And so like, oh, forget about this, I'm off, to the next one, download another one, who knows? David, what would nobody know about you from your LinkedIn?
Wow, difficult answer. Like, I don't share any, anything about my daily life. Basically, I'm not like spending all my time in the computer. Okay, I'm like also going outside, practicing a lot of sports. I play a lot of paddle, so I would say that's one of my favorite hobbies. And yeah, if someone
Awesome.
wants to play, I'm in.
Awesome. Not just work all day. Iran, what would nobody know about you from your LinkedIn?
Wow. Yeah, I think. I think I've joined so many panels with you, John, that this question kind of came up that I didn't was able to kind of work around it some way. That
Yeah.
maybe I'll kind of follow that same path. But maybe like a question for you: when do you think was the first panel or webinar that both of us had together?
Oh man, that's a tough one. I have no idea. I'm guessing it was years ago. If you remember it, let me know.
Okay, so I just checked it out, and I see it was almost exactly 5 years ago, John.
Wow.
And I had so many panels since then that it's pretty mind-blowing to me. So yeah, that was my fun fact for today.
That is awesome. That was a fun fact. Hannah's back with us. And so, you know what, I'm going to ask her, because she comes and she goes. I mean, this is Hannah, right? Hannah, what is one thing nobody would know about you from your LinkedIn?
Oh, I've missed everyone else's, so thank you for bearing with. I am in an Airbnb
David's
right
was
now.
incredibly embarrassing, so it's good to miss.
It was very good. Was it? Oh, I'm gonna have to watch this back. What's something nobody would know about me? I lived totally remotely for 2 years, and at that time I gave away 95% of all of my things. I just made a kind of table outside near my house and put everything there really nicely. And then I posted on Facebook Marketplace, and I just said to everyone, like, come and take my things. And then I left London for 2 years and worked like all over the world. And so, yeah, I've been back in London now for a year, but that's something that most people probably wouldn't know.
Wonderful. Okay, we're going to kick it off. We're going to go into it. And Sarah, maybe I'll start with you. I mean, so many different measurement sticks here, right? How have you had the same issue as David, and what do you do?
Yeah, so it's a great question. No easy answer or simple answer, I think. I don't think there's a source of truth, actually. So just like what David said, basically we must corroborate and check different sources for data and cross-check different sources of data. That's basically the simple, easy answer. But I would say to know what sources of data to check. Also, we have many sources of data. We need to take into account, that's what I do personally. What if it's, let's say, an app or a game, then the monetization type of the app or the game, how it monetizes. And then one important thing as well is the scale, let's say the budget. So a lot of different elements impact as well what kind of data and data sources we look at. That's just the summary, the simple answer.
Cool. Cool. That's a good starting point. And Hannah, maybe we'll turn to you as well for kind of your intro statement on this issue. What are you seeing when you're looking at measurement results and reports from different ad networks and trying to correlate that with everything else?
This is one of the topics that is, I mean, it's one of the topics that comes up most for everyone. There is no truth anymore. It's not about truth now. It's about triangulation. And so we should spend our time kind of cross-checking all of these different places and sources, as Sara said, as everybody has said. You know, we shouldn't just be looking at one place anymore and thinking like this is the absolute truth. For example, and one of the things that David and I exchanged like a couple of messages about as well was the underreporting that happens on the platform side. So whenever you're looking at Meta or you're looking at TikTok or you're looking at something like this, right now, what I see and what we see on platform is beyond a worst case scenario. Like what we see on Meta is the worst case scenario. And so what reality is significantly better and more efficient than what we see on platform. For example, if I'm seeing on Meta, 1,000 installs and 200 trials or something like this, probably the reality is that it's going to be more like 2,000 installs and 400 trials or something like this. We are seeing kind of pretty consistently like at least a 1.4 multiplier, and often that 1.4 is just with a custom product page, and we know how many people fall through the cracks of custom product pages as well. And so it is really about triangulating what reality is, and getting as close to that as possible. And at the same time, what we can do, and what we did a roundtable about in Vegas in May was about media mix modeling as well. So if you are spending an amount where it warrants doing this kind of report, then I think doing a media mix modeling study is very effective. And for one of my companies, for example, we had our own multiplier where it was around 2x, and the MMM showed that it's actually 4.4. So our Meta was underreporting by 4.4x versus reality. And so we just want to take these things into consideration. Like I work on a lot of different accounts, as does David, as does Sara. And what you see kind of consistently is a lot of teams will think what is happening in the account is reality and judge that as reality. But we have to, a big part of our jobs as well is educating people on this and making sure they've got a fuller picture.
So we're going to go to Iran in just a moment, and we're going to tell the guy who's the CTO of the measurement company there is no truth anymore. And we're going to see what he says about that. And it's going to be interesting, I guarantee it. Hannah, but I got to stick with you for a second here, because like most people think when we're talking about, hey, measurement platform, we're talking about ad networks, and we're talking about modeled measurement and all that stuff. Most people are thinking, hey, they're going to over-report. They want to exaggerate how much they're doing because they want to look good in the reports. And what you're saying is, no, they're under-reporting. What the heck?
They are. Yeah, I've seen in every single case across many, many different accounts, and we've checked this significantly. The platforms are under-reporting, and it's a worst-case scenario. So a very quick way for you to do this check yourself, and if you're not doing this already, is just to put a custom product page on all of the ads that you have live, just the same one, and see, okay, I had this many installs on Meta and I have this many installs on my custom product page. There are a lot of caveats to that. You will always see pretty much, I've never seen it not have the custom product page data be higher than it is inside the platform. But on top of that, that is only capturing direct click-through attribution as well. And most of our accounts have a minimum of about a kind of 20 to 30% view-through uplift. So considering your CPP will be more efficient than your ads already, and that's including your view-through. And then you have to think about your CPP plus 20 to 30%. this is closer to reality then. And actually, I've got some accounts, and bearing in mind on platforms like Meta, you can't actually incorporate view-through attribution into your optimizations. So it's click-through only at the moment. They're going to be changing that later in the year. So they will be reintroducing later in the year view-through attribution into our campaigns. And they will be extending also to 28-day click again, which is taking us back to pre-2021. But so, you know, we're about to stare in the faces of our past again. But we will always see that, the platform's underreporting. And for some of our accounts, which have a younger demographic, we actually have a much higher mix of view-through as well. Like one of our accounts, we've got about 80 to 90% view-through because of their burn capital. And they're very young demographic. So the older your demographic, the clickier those people will be. And the younger the demographic, the less clicky they will be. So they will go and see your ad, and then they'll go to Google, or they'll go to the App Store, or they'll go to something else and continue their journey there rather than clicking on it directly. So that means then the campaigns can't optimize as fast. That means there's a lot of lack of attribution. And so it becomes a bit of a virtuous cycle.
This is why you come to Growth Masterminds. This is why we have Hannah on. Some people are clicky, some people aren't clicky, you know, and we're not talking about cliques, Americans. It's clicks, but very, very cool. Super interesting. And Ron, we got to go to you. You run a measurement company. You're the CTO of a measurement company, and a prominent growth strategist just said there is no truth anymore. That's quite interesting because you and I just had a solo Growth Masterminds. Apologies, I'm just getting over a cold here, or COVID, or something else, who knows what. You and I just had a solo Growth Masterminds where we talked about kind of it's the best of times and it's the worst of times for measurement, right? There's so many measurements out there and they all look a little different. Make it make sense for us.
Yeah, well, I think, first of all, I completely agree with Han here. This is part of the challenge that everyone is facing these days. There are so many data points that it's hard to understand, okay, what's the actual truth? And maybe there really isn't like a single truth. And it's more about like cross-referencing the data and trying to get like the best insights from these. So as for, if I kind of look at the type of questions I receive from customers, many of them like face a similar question. Many times I try to say like some of the insights is actually on the differences between the types of data sets, because like Hannah said, like each one measures things in a different way. And that can actually help you understand, okay, what's going on behind the scenes. And there's so many nuances and mechanics between like how CPPs kind of work and the App Store in general, and how SKAN works behind the scenes, and how the platform kind of count their own measurements. And of course, the MMP as ourselves, like how we try to consolidate all of these and deduplicate the touch points and provide some consolidated view. When you try to measure these and compare these, you uncover the types of user behavior that you get, like how many really are clicking your ad versus just kind of going through these, and how many of these you might not even get any views or clicks within your attribution window, but still end up downloading the app. So there are many nuances that you can think about when you see kind of the differences between the numbers and try to cross-correlate these. Just one example that I think was also maybe referenced by kind of the post there is when we think about TikTok versus Meta, typically we see that TikTok actually has higher view-through rates compared to other social channels. And I think we spoke at some point with someone from TikTok who said like our users, they never click ads really. They just follow followers and just continue with the feed. So being measured by click-through is actually pretty challenging for TikTok themselves, right? And it kind of gives you kind of that understanding that they might be less measured by or like penalized by mechanics like CPPs, or basically 100% based on click-through versus other means, right? So thinking about the nuances of how the users interact with kind of the channels you're engaging with can really affect kind of your measurement in the numbers and how the performance looks like in the end. Yeah, and John, you're on
mute, John.
Thank you, guys. Yeah, I'm coughing my lungs out here, so I didn't want to share that with the world. Sarah, I wanted to come back to you, and we're going to ask David the same question in a moment as well. I mean, we just talked about some differences in the platforms, right? Young people are less clicky, and so therefore TikTok, which skews younger, less. Do you see any differences in the platforms and their accuracy level? Like, is TikTok better, worse than Meta? What about other platforms, Snap, others? Or are they kind of about the same?
Yeah, so I think in general terms, I do see Facebook being more accurate than, let's say, TikTok or even Google on iOS. But it really depends on the app. And yeah, again, it depends on how the app monetizes as well, especially if you're looking at post-install data, right? If you monetize with ad revenue or in-app purchases or subscriptions, you see very different data, and you have to look at the different data sources to cross-check as well. But in general, I would say yes, Meta is one that usually I've seen also my clients start with. That's the safest, let's say, between all to start SKAN campaigns on.
Cool. David, to come to you, you shared at least twice in the last, I think, 2-3 weeks on LinkedIn, just some of the wildly varying numbers, and you kicked us off with that. How did you solve that? What did you do? What did you end up telling your client?
Well, when people ask me about what should we trust, I always say nothing and everything at the same time. Like, you
There's
can
no
look
more
at
truth. There's no more
Yeah.
trust, but we trust everything.
So basically, it's what everyone already said. Like, you have to compare all the data points because every of them is giving you a part of the picture, right? And it's your job to stitch all the breadcrumbs together to see what's going on with your paid campaigns, right? When SKAN was launched back in the days, everyone was like panicking, and everyone was even shifting budgets towards Android. Networks quickly saw the pain in the advertisers. Then they launched and they started to rolling out these probabilistic methodologies to give us something that it was closer to what we were used to, right? With all these discrepancies happening around, it's more important than ever to cross-check all the data points to really model in an accurate way, because this modeling is what's going to determine your ranges. It's not about getting a unique number. It's about a range. It's about working with different scenarios and see how your paid campaigns are evolving with those scenarios. And if you're like achieving the break even on the target time frame, right, within those scenarios. So playing about that and educating people, which is even more challenging, at least for me, is our job, is what we have to do. And that's why I also try to provide some value on this direction.
Cool. I'm going to go to Iran in just a moment and ask how that can be easier for people. But I got to put up a comment here first and ask, I guess, Hannah, what the heck does this mean? I don't know. Somebody's proud of England. I guess you're the only English panelist, so maybe you understand this.
This one, I don't think this one was for me, but I'd love all of the companies that have been listed. Like,
excellent.
Anyone
Okay,
else?
cool.
Any other takers? EY, PwC, KPMG.
No idea. If you are out on the live stream and you have questions, do add them as comments and we will get them. We have a little bit of time for that at the end. So Iran, I want to come to you. And we talked about, hey, truthiness. We talked about, look at everything. What if somebody is actually, you're optimizing in real time and you need quick data? How do you do that? What do you trust? What do you pick? Do you have time to mix all these things and look at the big picture, or is it too late by the time you've already done that?
Yeah, so I think if we can do kind of like a mapping of all the different types of measurements or like data points, and each one has like their pros and cons. I think if we look at what's considered to like the MMP based data, or like the user level based, either probabilistic or modeled data from the channels, based on like our partnerships with TikTok and Meta and others, typically that's considered the most, technically it's considered the most real-time data, because in effect we get like the attribution the real-time the moment the user opens the app, essentially, because our MMP SDK is able to communicate with Meta and TikTok and receive all their, in some cases, receive all their impressions and clicks kind of before the actual app install. In other cases, we query their APIs to know if this user engaged with a Meta ad or a Google ad, like in the recent time. And both we use that both to show it in our dashboard in real time, so the same day you can see kind of the insights coming from these ads. And also we power the optimization algorithms for these channels, right? So we kind of understand like the post-install events that happen and send these together with the attribution results to the channels. So generally, I would say that if you're looking for like the data sets that's the most real-time, the most granular, in a way, the most actionable on the day-to-day operational side, that's typically that user-level modeled kind of information, right, coming from your MMP's dashboard. Now, again, like each one of these has like pros and cons. There are also cons to this mechanics or like this data point that sounds really fantastic on its own. But for the day-to-day operation, that's usually the most convenient from what we hear.
Cool. Hannah, I wanted to come back to you. And if we look at the inconsistencies, do they vary? Do they vary by scale? Like if there's more scale, are they better? Do they vary by geo or targeted audience or vertical or genre or anything? Or is it just they're generally off?
I would say it's just generally off. I mean, the one that had the 4.4 uplift from the MMM was spending about 500-600K on Meta in a month. So, that's not a tiny scale. There's definitely bigger accounts out there, but I mean, it's doing quite a lot. So understanding, okay, there's a 4.4, but with that company, for example, they have a very high view through, as I say. So that itself puts a lot of limitations on that account, because we're relying on like a 10% click-through portion for their attributions, which are already under reporting, and then trying to run on iOS. And so that means our budgets need to be essentially for a campaign much, much higher than they would otherwise need to be, which means we can do fewer campaigns, which means that there aren't as we can't kind of scale things based on themes. We can if we're looking like on a blended perspective, and so we are continuing to invest and seeing good results there, but there would be a lot more kind of more interesting things that we could do. So we are moving away from kind of doing iOS only as much as possible. There are lots of other things that we can do in the platforms, and we want to make sure we're also incorporating some web attribution in there and things like this too. But yeah, across different accounts, we do see different levels. But I wouldn't say it's related to spend, but more kind of, as Sara says, the monetization strategies that they have, what their flows are, different things like this. But we've, on average between the accounts, as I say, like it's between kind of 1.4 and 2.2x halo. So in the lower end, usually accounts are like at least 1.4 under reporting.
Super cool. I wonder if that halo is sometimes organic uplift as well. But interesting to look more deeply at that. If you have a comment, go ahead right away, Hannah.
I was going to say this is like comparing with app preferers in platform. And so even with the halo effect, it would be much larger and much greater. So I've had accounts, I mean, I've been running ads for like 14 years now, and there have been times where the decision has been made to turn off things entirely. And, you think it's going to go down by X, and actually it goes down by like 4 times X or 5 times X because as you mentioned, there is that also that organic halo effect. So just in the same way your organic and good performance on your organic feeds your paid and complements your paid, your paid also complements your organic. And so these things perform very well when they're kind of coexisting together.
Cool. I'm going to do something you should never do as a moderator. I'm going to throw a general question out there and not going to attach a name to it. And so somebody's going to have to jump up and get it. And you know what? Maybe 3 people will. Who knows? It might be chaos. We'll see how it goes. Because as all this stuff is going on, right? All this modeling and probabilistic and everything else, there's other giant changes in the whole measurement and attribution thing. On the Google side, we have ICM. coming in, right? Which is their sort of modeled measurement scenario, which we've known there's been some things going on there, but this is official and there's a name to it and all that stuff. We also have on the meta side, AMM just came back. I noticed that the release time for that was 5 p.m. Pacific. That's when we were allowed to publish the blog post about it. Why do you publish something at 5 p.m. Pacific? When you don't want anybody to notice. So AMM is back, baby. And what does all of this mean? Who wants to grab that hot potato first? Either the ICM or the AMM?
I can start maybe, just to kick it off, but I'd actually love to hear kind of the feedback from the panelists. I would say that as an MMP, we're very excited, obviously, about all of these because, like you said, it's bringing back like user level data directly to the advertiser. Some of these partners have put like very strict restrictions on us MMPs on our ability to share like deeper granular insights, and I think AMM is a great example in which, of course, under their requirements, under Meta's requirements, the advertisers would be able to receive granular attribution information up to the user level, actually understanding which users came from Meta campaigns, which is huge, right? There are so many opportunities for what you can do with that, and that actually was the case like many years ago by now, and we're very excited to have it back. And Google with the ICM, which has like a bunch of different capabilities. I think one of the most exciting there is the on-device measurement flow. So those are new capabilities that actually don't exist in other self-attributed networks, in which we're actually able to get more signals from the device to actually attribute whether this user came from a Google campaign across all their different channels, including YouTube. So this is very early on in the process, and they have like I guess multiple pieces in the puzzles there that they're still working on releasing. But just I think that the whole on-device measurement strategy is something that I think is really exciting as a new way of doing measurement, and I would expect or hope that maybe other channels or media partners would consider these flows as well. So yeah, it's very exciting.
Super interesting that the on-device stuff is happening, because that was a component of Privacy Sandbox, which we haven't heard much of for half a year, right? But that was a component, and that David's got a big grin on his face. David, you got to talk. You have a big smile. Now you have to say something.
Yeah, I mean,
you are muted.
Privacy Sandbox, I think Google and Apple, man, and they're moving so slow. Like, it can be like that. Like, the two biggest players of the industry, they are not demanding, they're not like satisfying the demand of the industry. And that can be because
or are they?
I think they are not, or at least not on the level that we need. There is too much friction. That's the reality. And that's why everyone is distancing from SKAN, deterministic attributions that are respecting these privacy limitations, right? And this is a trend. Everyone is moving away from SKAN. Everyone is pushing for attracting advertisers to use these probabilistic frameworks. And hopefully, and to be honest, this is the trend that I like, because it gives me actionable points to work with, which is something that I don't have with the deterministic attribution in this case. So let's see how they move in the coming months with Privacy Sandbox. I mean, they roll out the news 2 years ago, and then nothing has happened yet. So,
which is kind of why I asked the question, or are they? Sara, Hannah, you guys chime in. ICM, AMM, or any other topic?
I think it's going to be I think the move towards AMM, or rather the move back towards AMM, is very exciting for a lot of advertisers. I mean, it's not totally rolled out yet, firstly, so people aren't really using this in its entirety or at all really yet. So we just want to bear that in mind. This is something that's going to be hitting us soon. There are going to be a lot of other changes to Meta again soon, as I mentioned. Like, probably everybody knows, but just in case, in 2021, attribution windows went down to 1-day click. AEM gave us back 7-day click without any view. On Meta, we're getting back 28-day click plus view. plus view in our kind of optimization for our optimizations of our campaigns. We're getting AMM back. Like there are lots of things changing, and I think the team have been working quite hard on some of these things. There are probably some other bugs they could fix before that, but they've been doing some really good work on helping the advertisers from this perspective too. So like moving back towards AMM, like I remember the good old days when you could see all of your attribution sources properly inside your product analytics tool and follow everyone through. And we're going to be kind of seeing more of this again in the future. So we're going, back to the olden days, but this time in a bit of a good way, for once.
The olden days. Sarah.
Yeah, so I think it's worth considering that Meta and Google on iOS have lost a big share of spend from advertisers, especially on gaming. And if you look at the benchmarking tool from Singular in terms of spend by vertical, you're going to notice something very interesting, that for gaming, actually AppLovin on iOS represents like 25 to 30% share of spend. If you looked a couple of years back, you would see before all of this iOS privacy thing happened, that it was actually Facebook and Google on iOS that were the top spenders. So I think they're doing their best in whatever way they have to get back to this point where they are gaining again a big percentage of spend share. So I think that's one more action that they've taken to get back there, basically, to help advertisers be able to scale again on iOS.
So interesting, right? Because there's so many things going on here. There are new technologies coming from all different angles, and there's privacy coming in from the outside, from the inside, and other things like that. And then you've got these competitive challenges that you brought up here that are very real, because it's share of voice, share of spend, right? And that matters. These are businesses. They're trying to make money and they want to capture as much as possible. They have to do as much as possible. But it's funny, Hannah, you said back to the olden days. We are. But the olden days were very simple. There was kind of like one measuring stick, right? There was one thing we checked, and then it was truth. I mean, last click was obvious, right? I mean, like if it was that drove it all, right? Of course, not quite true, obviously, but now we are in this new reality. Guys, this has been super interesting. We have to start bringing it to a close here. I think we have the general picture. All measurements are invalid. All measurements are valid. There is no truth. Everything is true. You can't trust anything. You have to trust everything. Do I have it correct?
Pretty much. That's
absolutely,
it. You nailed it.
So we solved it.
You nailed it. I think the thing is, you have to take everything that you see with a pinch of salt. You have to use some attributions and some channels that you're seeing and the data on some places for specific things. Like you have to ultimately use what the platforms see to optimize your campaigns sometimes and things like this, especially at the beginning. You're not going to be really looking kind of at 3 different data sources and making your decisions and then optimizing your campaigns based on that, because it's not seeing that data and it will hurt your campaigns ultimately. So you have to still kind of look at some of these other bits of data, but then ultimately, as we say, like triangulation is the key really here. And you'll see on David's posts, and if you don't follow David, you should absolutely go give him a follow. Like he's producing some amazing content lately, but you'll see on his posts, he'll be sharing like there's this data, like data from this source, and this source, and then talking through the like uplift on these different channels. It's fantastic to see. So you'll see exactly what I mean when you go check out some of his latest posts too.
Wonderful. Last hit, Sarah. Your last thoughts.
We'll send you the invoice later for that, Hannah.
Thank you.
Yeah. So last thoughts. I think, again, triangulation, never trust one source. Opposite to what Aaron said, I know, Singular or your MMP probably is the best, you said maybe if you wanted to look at one source, you should look at your MMP. But again, like triangulation is the best answer as many sources as you can, you will see very different numbers. So you just need to try and make sense of them. Like, it's almost guaranteed that you're going to see very different numbers. So yeah, look at different sources, try and make sense of it. Probably start with probabilistic channels before moving on to channels that track with the SKAN only. And then once you've scaled those, then start testing, SKAN tracked campaigns. That's what I would recommend.
Let's move to Iran for last hits. And I guess one thing I'll set you up with is the good thing is that Singular Data is actually using multiple measurements by default. Is that correct?
That's true, especially in iOS. So we have our unified iOS report that actually tries to combine it all together to a single report. So to see kind of what's based on the MMP installs, what's based on the SKAN installs, what's based on the network kind of performance, like from their dashboard kind of installs, and then tries to come up with kind of like a cross-reference number that takes all of these into account to try to get you the bottom line. Now, I completely agree with what everyone said. Even if you have like a single number, always cross-reference and validate assumptions. There's always going to be differences, and sometimes those differences really matter. They mean some really interesting things. But yeah, we're trying to make it at least as simple as possible to start with, and then question kind of the data and analyze it further.
And it's kind of interesting to hear all this, right? We're going to give David last hits in just a moment. It's kind of interesting to hear all this, right, Iran, because like I see what goes on in the Singular dashboard, the back end. I don't involve myself too much in that stuff, obviously. But, you know, I look at that and I'm like, I'm an idiot. Just show me one number. That's all I want. Just am I better? Am I worse? Am I growing? Am I not? Whatever and stuff. And then you and the Singular product team said, you know, we're going to show all the measurements from all the sources, so you can actually see those and see those in one view. That's kind of what people have been talking about. So that's kind of cool to hear that. It's almost like you guys know what you're doing. Almost. David, last hits.
Yeah, I mean, from my side, having a platform like Singular in this case will be key for those people who are not that used to cross-check all the data points. Having that unified view gives you a bit of high-level view about what's your next move with your paid campaigns. Obviously, on top of that, I always recommend like cross-checking and modeling your own data to see what's the scenario that you have in overall, and then making the optimizations based on that. But yeah, if you are not on that level of knowledge, I would say that counting with an MMP is key, because otherwise you have to cross-check not only channel by channel, but also with the Aperture Connect. You don't have any common interface, which is merging all the data, and it gets even more complicated. So I would say, depending on where you are, you either go with an MMP to at least have like that high-level view that helps you to make decisions day over day. If you are like in a more advanced way, you can always like try different alternatives, but you need to really monitor the data closely, because there are always discrepancies happening everywhere. So yeah, that's basically the situation.
Wonderful, wonderful. David, is that your home office?
Yeah, it is.
I'm glad you have at least one flower. It's a very lonely flower.
It's made of plastic, so it's not even a flower.
I think it needs like a painting or something, but you know what? Maybe all the effort is to the insides. I totally get it.
Yeah, I recently moved, so I'm in process.
Awesome, excellent. I want to thank everybody here. You guys are all amazing. I look up to each one of you. You guys do incredible stuff. You share incredible things. That's, you know, often what I'm seeing, what I'm looking at. I'm seeing incredible stuff, and you have great personalities too. I mean, which is wonderful. Thank you so much, Hannah. Thank you, Sarah. I really appreciate you. Thank you, Iran. Thank you, David. You kicked this off, and you ended it as well. And wow, almost ended me. Thank you so much, and have a great day, everybody. Anybody who's been watching, hey, we appreciate you also. This will be available on the audio podcast shortly, and it's already on YouTube and on LinkedIn. Have a great day, all.